All right, man.
All right.
I've been waiting for this one for a while.
Yeah.
Everybody, welcome to the Abundance2Give podcast. Today, we have your behavioral psychologist, would you call that, or therapist and marriage therapist?
Licensed marriage family therapist is the technical term. So.
Saving men's lives, man.
They do all the work. They do all the work.
So with that in mind, without diving in too deep too soon, I mean, I think the best thing I've kind of come across in watching a lot of your stuff and learning about you and kind of how you've even helped me is how you focus on making men the best versions of themselves.
Yeah. High
value men, right? That then can attract a high value woman or the things that they want, high value stuff in life. That's in general.
Theory. Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that. In number one, number two, in how I think watching your father go through a divorce with your mother and how that kind of really spearheaded you exactly where you're at. Right. I think that's important because we're all a product of our upbringings and surroundings 100%. And all of that. So,
yeah, I mean, touching on that high value part, I don't think people can say like, this is what high value is. We kind of know a little bit based on like evolutionary psychology. You can look at someone who has certain statuses and wealth and personal value, but like, I think it's kind of getting distorted a little bit in our society because what most men who I consider high value, it's not anything they have, it's their values, right? And I think a lot of men, they kind of sacrifice who they are a lot of times in their values and their boundaries, which is what's causing like a slow degradation of like respect from their wives or girlfriends. And that's what causes a lot of disconnect.
Do you think men get neutered in relationships because of their actions?
That's a very direct.
And I'm using that word.
No, 100%. Like, okay. Neutered. I mean, so it's in the feminine like paradigm to just always challenge their man, test their man. We'll go more into it, I'm sure, but like to constantly making sure he is the guy that she first fell for. And some men, it's like, it's too much. I just can't take it anymore. I give up. And I get that feeling 100% do. But if you give up, she's going to lose that attraction. And she's like, I'm not with the guy that I first fell in love with. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say the three things that you helped me most out with that I identified specifically is your knowledge of how the difference between how men and women process emotion. Number one. Number two, attachment styles.
Yeah.
Number three, female psychology. And I'm not trying to toot your horn, but I have seen a lot of therapists, a lot of people in general out there doing their thing. And I have not seen anyone with the level of, I guess, intuitive nature on how to explain the conundrum of female psychology. You do it very well. Like, why do you think you have that knacked?
Well, being screwed over.
Because we're going to get into it in the podcast and people are going to get to see probably what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I was in a lot of hurtful relationships where I screwed up, right?
Trial by error. What is it?
100%. I've been in a lot of messed up relationships and I'm proud of that because those failures and that heartache, sent me inward to find answers and outward as well through my master's in psychology. But being cheated on the first three relationships will kind of make a mark of
back to back.
First three girls. Yeah. Every single one. And
were you in love with all three?
I don't know how you define in love. But the first one was that first love. I think each love can be defined differently. It feels different, at least to me. I don't know for anyone else out there, but that first love was based more in lust and novelty. Like, oh my God, I never felt this before. The second one was more of that like intimate friendship. Like this person fully accepts me for who I am, which I never felt before. And the third one was like that dream archetype woman that I always thought I would marry. So that was like the committed kind of like, love.
When was the last time your heart was broken?
I never got that. I don't think I get that question from you.
See? You're going to get some good ones today.
That's interesting. My last relationship ended. I don't know if I become more callous over all the pain or I just know how to heal my pain faster. But when we broke up, I cried like a baby that night and then I was over it. So I guess that counts. But since I knew she wasn't the one for me, I just had to harshly accept it. Like after the one night of it, I was healed. I was good.
Okay.
Yeah. And I wish her the best, but
was that within the last year, 2 years, 3 years?
It was more than a year ago. Cause I've been with my current partner for more than, it was like 3 years ago. So with my partner for more than a year and
you talked about traditional therapy and couples therapy. Yeah. And this is what blew me away. because you had done the traditional therapy with men and women in a room where they come in, they hash out problems.
Lots of couples. Yeah.
Right. And I was married for 7 years.
Okay.
But then you say how that can be like completely the wrong way to approach it because you're just hammering each other out. Talk a little bit more about that. And then when the shift happened to where you're focusing mostly on men and bringing their level up, because by doing that, you're actually bringing the woman closer.
Yeah. I'm not saying that couples therapy can't work for some couples some of the time.
Sure.
Studies show that.
Was that a disclaimer?
So there's a couple of limitations when it comes to therapy. The first being that usually one person is there just for confirmation that it's over. Fine, I'll show up, but I'm just going to create the problem in the little microcosm here to show that it's not worth it. And the therapist is going to see that it's not worth saving, right?
Gotcha.
That thing happens a lot. The second thing is like the therapist oftentimes is playing referee, like trying to balance these two people out. And it's just like, in order to like, the metaphor I give is like, let's say the couples can't dance well together, right? You want to separate them, teach one person how to dance and lead, and then put them back together. But like when they come in there and they're just going to start talking about the problems the whole time, there's never solutions, right? It's just like throwing him to the fire. And the third reason is this one I found from the Chris Williamson podcast. I'm not sure if you know Chris Williamson. He does like a men's podcast. He was interviewing a therapist himself. And as men, we are more action oriented, right? And a lot of the therapy models are focused on emotions. Talk about your emotions, which are helpful. But we as men need action steps if we want to achieve a goal. Like, tell me what to do, right? Don't just like talk about my emotions. Cool, great. I process my emotions about my father. Now what? Yep. And therapy lacks that to a large degree.
And that kind of goes into my next thing of the difference between how men and women process emotion.
Yeah.
And this is, it's all throughout all your videos. And if you have not watched Josh on YouTube, one of your channels has about 130,000 subscribers.
Yeah, 150,000 subscribers.
Right.
Yeah.
The other one is still growing.
Just started it.
And we'll talk about the two different ones, but talk about the difference between how men and women process emotions, because in many of your videos, you talk about like this holding space in a cylinder of emotion for time for women, and men, very logical, right? The minute we see a negative emotion or a negative this from our spouse or whoever it is, we try and go attack, solve the problem logically, which is a complete, utter disaster. And it's like the slow death of any relationship.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
I don't know if it's culture or it's nature, but as men, we tend to kind of strive towards just like challenge and competition and achievement and then peace. That's the kind of range we want. We float in there.
Happy wife, happy life. And we're taught this like over and over and over in our brains.
You talk to a woman, they want to experience a range of like every emotion they can experience. Like that's part of life to them, right?
Fuck.
I know, right? And so as a guy, when she's stressed out, uncomfortable, jealous, insecure, all these things, you're like, I want that peace again. And so they're like, temper that down. Let's solve your problem. I don't like feeling this way. I don't want you to feel this way. But
all men are guilty of this, aren't we?
We are. We want to solve the problem but our intention is she's upset. If I was like her, I'd want to feel good. She wants to feel those negative emotions. She wants to.
And then would you say that's a form of a test? One of you, because you talk about testing all the time.
Testing.
And how women subconsciously, not necessarily consciously, subconsciously
they're not aware of it.
Are testing a lot of men or their spouse, whoever it is.
Yeah.
And how men react or how your partner reacts to that is the telltale sign as to how that, I call it the seesaw in the relationship, because you gave the analogy in the beginning of every relationship, the seesaw is in your favor is the partner. And then over time, it's like a death by 1,000 knives. It just goes like that to flatline. And then if you don't correct it and you show feminine, traits.
Yeah, reactivity.
Boom, it goes the other way and you're done.
Yeah.
Unless you can find a way to change your behavior.
Yeah, slowly change it back. Yeah, absolutely.
But let's talk more about female emotions.
Yeah.
Because a lot of your videos, between like the way men can change things, let's talk about masculine and feminine energy, because that's a big thing, especially in society today, where we feel like either men are getting neutered or, feminized, take that, what do they call it? Toxic masculinity and throw it out the window. All these things you're hearing throughout media and society today, but in a way, it's very detrimental to relationships between men and women.
Yeah.
Why do you see that and feel that?
The way I see it is like, in Buddhism, there's like this concept of the middle way, right? Where, right now, I think because of like this divide between men and women, that men are getting answers about how to be a masculine man, and we're either being told to be completely stoic, don't ever be vulnerable, be that macho man, 1920s or earlier, like cowboy kind of mentality, or be super feminized and it's okay, like gender's on a spectrum,
show your emotions,
right? And I always find that there's a healthy man. I call it the apex male, right? Where it's like, yes, you can be vulnerable and express your emotions and I have feminine sides to myself. I love connection. I'm a therapist, right? I love my emotions, blah, blah, blah. But then like you can still have this dominance in you, this killer, this soldier. And knowing how to balance the two is like that integrated male, right? And I think that's what a lot of men are kind of missing, is that they have these mixed messages from both sides and they're kind of losing their sense of self.
What do you call it? The leader, the lighthouse, and the enlightenment?
That's I think one of the concepts I talked about recently. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was a really recent one.
Yeah. What is that?
So I think, oh man, that was like the most recent video that just came out.
Is it?
Right? Yeah,
okay. All right.
I was trying to remember.
Apparently I'm watching some shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a really good book, actually, a resource is like King, Magician, Warrior, Lover. I forgot who the author is.
King, Magician, Warrior, Lover.
Okay. Yeah. It's like the 4 male archetypes that you should embody. I forgot who the author of that one is, but that's like a good model to follow as well. But yeah, I think when it comes to this masculine, feminine polarity, especially now women are becoming more independent in our Western culture, right? They're making more money. And so as men, it's like, that's what we used to provide, is like that financial kind of resource and that base, the provider male. And now women are looking for more of the other traits to find value in relationships, which are the protector male traits.
Safety.
Well, like emotional safe. So like there's like, this is a concept of dual mating.
What do they say? Provide, protect, safe, or safe?
Right. Yeah. So like in my thesis in grad school, I talked about like, there's this dual mating strategy, and this has been controversially debated, but women kind of go after two guys. They go after the provider male and the protector male, right? The provider male is like that beta guy who gives them all the money and who's safe and nice. And then there's the protector male who is like going to have that leadership, like the unreactivity, like pick her up and carry her on her shoulder. You know what I mean? Fight the bad guys off and stuff. And a lot of men, that old archetype of being the provider like 50, 60 years ago was working. But now that women are making their own money, they're kind of like overvaluing these other traits in men. And that's what a lot of men are losing in our society, is that like,
because they're thinking, and you talk about it where, well, gosh, I provided this environment, this lifestyle, this family, these kids. I've done all these amazing things, and it's not enough for her.
It's not, and they don't feel good enough. And that's like their own wound of like, I'm not good enough the way I am. Right. And I'll hear this ad nauseum. I mean, super successful guys too, right? Like I spent $100,000 remodeling the home last month, and now she's yelling at me that I didn't do this one thing around the house.
No, but that's a test.
It is a test.
And how you react to that. I mean, this is like the things, I mean, it's been very hopeful to understand the female psychology and the difference between how men and women process emotions, and how a lot of times when she's feeling a certain way, or expressing negativity or just emotions in general, just holding a safe place for it to happen without any reaction to it. And then once she's done going through that cylinder of emotions, just being that solid figure to either give, listen to it, maybe amplify it. You talk about amplifying it, and then move on without trying to solve the shit.
Yeah. The metaphor I give a lot is like that shore and the ocean, right? Where it's like the ocean, the feminine ocean, it can be caressed, the shore, be all nice and gentle. But if it get those storms of emotion get, riled up, and as the guy, like without, letting abuse happen, there should be a line you have in the sand, but you let her have her crazy emotions, let her yell, let her scream, let her be pissed off.
So I was married for about 7 years and about 3 years now divorced.
Yeah.
2 beautiful children, 7 and 9. And, we both did I think a really great job of amicable separation to focus on the children.
Nice. And
we've continued that, which I think is really important, regardless of our differences and all that other stuff. But then you go back and you're like, okay, I can take responsibility for the role I played in that not working out. Like once you start to have self-awareness and pay attention to things, it's very interesting how you can be like, oh, okay. So I was probably causing those reactions by not being a leader, not being this, not being that in a certain way. So not that you want to take full responsibility. It takes 2 to tango in every relationship. But I think it's really important that men start to realize you have to play these masculine leadership roles and portray these certain high value traits. And you will actually solve a lot of the reactions that you're getting from your spouse, because she's reacting to certain ways that you are or are not. Is that what I'm gathering from what you've shared?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one thing that's completely helped me the most when it comes to like a mindset around it, I actually paid a lot of money for this like fitness program. And this guy talked about a part of the brain called the habendula. It's like a record keeper of our successes and failures. And our brain is able to distinguish between basically successes that we achieve. And then it's like, done. Okay, I got that promotion, degree, right? Like I achieved that thing. I don't have to think about it anymore. And with our body, it's an iterative process, right? Like you don't have your perfect body, never have to work out again, never have to eat healthy. I think as men, like I married her. Cool. She's loved me forever. I've achieved that goal.
Yeah. They get lazy.
Your wife's an iterative process,
Correct.
right? It's a daily grind to make her happy.
That's right.
And so I think a lot of guys, that's where the complacency trap comes in, is that they thought I married her, I got her, it's death to us part, focus on other areas of my life.
Gotcha.
Right. So.
Huh. Okay. So your wife or spouse comes to you, partner, and says, I want some space. And you said there's 3 things that a man can do to win her back when this happens.
Yeah.
Talk about those.
I mean, the first step is like knowing why. Actually, I was saying before that, actually, don't react. Let's talk about what not to do.
Yeah.
I think 80% of winning her back, the Pareto's principle, is like by not making mistakes, which guys beg, they plead, they try
neediness.
They use need. They try to use logic. Like, well, what about all our memories? Like, what about the kids? What about this? What about that? They're trying to logically convince her to like not leave, but that's an emotional process to her, right? I used to teach dating for a long time. It's like me walking up to a girl in the bar and being like, see this Rolex? Same shit. It's the same thing. But like, it's the same thing. Like by trying to use logic to change her emotions, it's like, square peg, round hole.
Yeah.
And so don't be needy. Don't use logic. And then the second thing is why? Like be curious. Have a posture of curiosity. So when you remain calm, you're not needy. You're like, okay, what's going on here? Talk to her about it.
Yeah.
And she'll give you the answers, right? And you have to really kind of just be mindful and kind of put your ego bias the wayside just for a little bit. And then you actually do grant her that space because again, you said it yourself. If you're going to be needy and chase, that's just going to reconfirm in your mind that she's making the right decision, that you're
it's feminine traits.
Feminine, very feminine.
Right. So that masculine, feminine role switches. And then, like you said, it just confirms her, oh, well, this guy's not the protector, the provider, the safe guy. I don't feel safe. I don't trust. Stuff like that. Yeah.
David Data, who wrote the book, The Way of the Superior Man, which is a lot of this polarity, masculine, feminine stuff comes from. He at least popularized it. He talks about how there's a quote in there, and I'm going to misquote it a little bit, but he basically said, if you put your woman first, you're basically disserving her. Like your purpose has to come first. And guys put their wives
in women
first.
You explain this, they want that. Like they want
not consciously. No, you get a lot of women coming or like women listening. They're going to say they want to come first,
but subconsciously. But this is where the female psychology comes in. You've studied this and studies, and I mean, your videos hit on it so articulately as to, trying to understand the female psychology is a challenge. We all know that, but understanding a lot of it is subconscious and just knowing how to really not react, and then to portray certain, high value masculine traits that will naturally, from an evolutionary standpoint, gravitate her towards your energy. What's the shore law? Talk about shore law.
So I just mentioned that, right? Like the shore and like the wave, right?
And how 96% of men fail this test with their wife or girlfriend.
Yeah, they react. So like if you think of the shore, right?
Yeah.
The waves crashing down, that if they're that shore, that masculine salt energy that doesn't back down, men, the way they react or the way they break, 96% of them, is they'll either shut down, stonewall, Dr. Gottman calls it stonewalling, be like completely just robotic, show no love. And the wife's like, you have no emotion, you're cold hearted, right? Or they'll get reactive themselves and be like, well, it's you, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll become emotional feminine, which is like polar opposite, same as her, which pushes her away. And that's kind of breaking as a man. But when you're calm, you understand her, see that storm of emotion, don't let it affect you. And then kind of respond to how she's feeling. Like, man, you're really hurt right now. I see that. It's like, you see her, like her pain. It's like, oh, you're there for her. You're not retreating. She can trust you. That emotional safety is what like keeps her there. Right. Like there's this clip on I think the what's that show? It's like the Breakfast Club. I think that one podcast, and this woman was talking about how her husband's just like, he's like, he's just straight volume. Like I'll be yelling. He's just like, okay, baby, I'm here for you. And she's like, that's what I love about him. He's just that calm, grounded energy. Because women, they need to feel safe.
Yeah. Emotionally,
right? I mean, if you go back to evolution, right, they were more susceptible to threats, right? So they need to feel that the guy is going to protector traits. Like that is that core protector is like, you can be as crazy as you are. Because if you can back down as a man and get scared of her and run away or fight back, how can she trust that you'll be able to protect her from all the other threats out there in the world? That's what subconsciously is happening.
Interesting. Holy crap. No, I mean, it's incredible because until you truly understand this, and the psychology behind it, there's a lot of mistakes, that can be made. Are there 2 or 3 recent cases that you've dealt with that stand out to you that you helped a man in a really bad scenario, either save a marriage or a relationship with a girlfriend that you can think of as of recent?
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting testimonial calls every week. I'm so blessed to do that. But one that sticks out, I love this guy, Sean. Shout out to Sean if you were to see this, but his wife was having an emotional affair with another guy. And that's a lot of cases for these guys. And I've seen this pattern happen so many times. It is repeatable. It's kind of ridiculous actually. But so at first he struggled to take that space, and he's like, all right, I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to learn about myself. I'm going to start set these goals, start running marathons. He started taking care of himself. He had this daily routine. And then, the limerence phase, which that honeymoon phase, ended with the other guy.
Okay.
Right.
Was that like 2-3 months in or whatever?
It was about 2 months in.
Okay.
And she saw all these changes he was doing the whole time. And she's like, so that curiosity was like, he wasn't chasing her, right? There's that space that allowed her to come back to him. He attracted her, right? He didn't chase. And it was so funny because I've seen this happen so many times. So she invited him to a weekend getaway, right? With some other people. And he's like, no. Like, this is all he wanted for like 2 months. Like, just like, I want her back.
That takes some discipline, man.
And so, but the thing is like, it was a test because she was still in contact with the other guy.
Gotcha.
Right. And so she's subconsciously saying like, if I let you back into my life, but I'm still seeing this guy under my terms, will you take me back? The fact that he said no reaffirmed or established his like high value. And he's like, no. And she's like, well, why? He's like, stop seeing the other guy and I will. Done. She ended it with the other guy and she got back with him. And I've seen that happen so many times. It's ridiculous.
Holy cow. So the term happy wife, happy life, how do you feel that in a way is ruining relationships?
Because that predicates your own happiness as a man on external factors outside of yourself, right? That's one thing, is like your happiness is based on her, right? There's one thing I can guarantee, well, besides death and taxes, that your woman's going to get upset no matter what you do. And so you need to develop this skill to be okay with that.
Okay.
Right. And so I hate that phrase.
How to restore trust in a relationship. I know that's a big thing. And you give like the analogy of a house versus watering a plant and how to restore that trust in a relationship.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. I mean, so that's why I got cheated on 3 times. I'll just say that, because that first relationship that I got cheated on, it created this like missed trust schema in my mind where.
Oh, wait. So, okay. I remember watching this. Talk about the story. It was something about in college. And
which one?
This is getting good. Yeah. It's like dating files all over. So in college, her ex-boyfriend moves down below.
God. Yeah. I can. So I got to set it up by saying that like my first girlfriend left me for another guy. Right.
Okay.
And so I get with this woman that I'm like, oh my gosh, she's my dream woman. I want to be with her the rest of my life. And so her ex-boyfriend left her for another girl. Right.
Okay.
So same process.
Wait. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Same process happened to me, happened to her with her ex.
Yeah.
So I projected, right? All the way that I felt is the way that she felt, which I wanted my ex back when it happened to me. So I was like, of course she wants her ex back because I wanted my ex back when that happened.
Gotcha.
She wants to validate her own ego. The guy moves right below her in the same apartment complex in Chico State, which is like a huge party school, right? And so someone who's already been cheated on, who's projecting all this, what do you think I'm thinking every single night that I'm out with her?
She's sleeping with him.
Of course. So, I mean, it got so bad to the point where I saw this smack in my face where I couldn't deny it. One night we went out and drinking. Of course, alcohol's involved. We get back to her place and I start going through her phone. All right, of course I do. And I start looking at text messages. There's nothing there. Nothing I can find of any guilt, right? But I texted him as her.
Oh, fuck.
This is trying to get him to admit that they've done stuff, right? Like, oh, remember that one? Like, and that, but that only, what that is, like him was like, oh, she wants me, right? And then pushing her away simultaneously.
You literally drove her right to him, didn't you?
100%. And that's where I was like, this is my fault.
Do you, any regrets with that, or you've healed from that, moved on, you dealt with it? I mean, it's kind of unique because you help so many men because you deal with men only now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yet it's interesting because you've suffered a lot of it yourself, but that's probably why you're so good at what you do in an odd way.
Every master was once a disaster, right?
It's a good quote. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, so the masters failed thousands of times more than the students tried, kind of thing.
But like you said about the trust thing, the house versus the water. So that was a good example. But how would a man restore trust with his wife?
Yeah.
Because we're fixers.
Yeah.
But you gave the analogy of like going to fix a house that has problems in a house. Great, easy. Versus, you have to water the plant. And if you overwater it, it suffocates.
Yeah. The literature, unfortunately, men don't like hearing this because we are doers. We're human doings. The literature says that trust isn't about what you do. It's just not continuing to mess things up. That trust will heal over time naturally if you just like let it heal like a wound, right? You just, the wound
let it turn into a scar. Or something.
Yeah. So like if I have a wound here, it's like an emotional wound. If I keep on removing the Band-Aid and start like trying to like do things to it, it's going to keep on reopening the damn wound. Like you got to just let it heal and stop messing with it. And so when it comes to a relationship, every time she brings up something from the past or you bring it up, you don't just like react, fail those tests. Like let her process those emotions. Let yourself process those emotions. Create that safe base for each other. Listen to her. And every time she does that, it's an opportunity to continue letting it heal. So that's how trust is restored, is just through time, unfortunately. And forgiveness. I'll say that too.
Yeah. Which is not easy to do.
It's just a word, right? Like forgive someone, you know?
But it's a lot easier said than done.
Way easier said than done. Yeah. Like I talk to a lot of guys and they're like, no, I forgave my wife. And then 2 seconds later, they'll bring up how like, oh yeah, she cheated on me. And like, it's like, you keep on bringing it up, but you say you forgive her. Well, no, I do. I mean, but I'm just saying like, it's like, I think forgiving is, I think Oprah said this. It's like forgiving is when you can thank the person for the experience. And I don't think a lot of guys, husbands can do that for the betrayals their wife have done to them.
Yeah. And I think, when you as a man, and you could even flip it from a female's perspective, if you have a lot of things and passions and drives and other things going on in your life, then as you'd mentioned earlier, not making her number one. And it's not that you're not making her a priority.
She's number two
in a way, but because you have these other passions and pursuits and drives, that is an attraction.
Yeah.
And vice versa for her to you. Because if it is all about you're my only soul and I'm going to give you all my time, then it's the neediest factor. Yeah. And it's a feminine trait.
Yeah.
Right. So then she gets not attracted to that. Yeah. And it starts to like whittle away.
Take that to the extreme, like waking up. Hey babe, I'm just going to stay home today. I just want to like cater to you all day. Maybe once every 5-6 months you could do that to her, but like
not daily. No. Yeah, and you can't be like overbearing in that aspect because, like you said, it's gonna turn anybody off.
The metaphor I heard, I think it's from David.
But I think men get anxious, and we're going to talk about attachment styles here in a minute because I think that's probably been the biggest win for me, along with this covert contract thing. That was hands down one of my. I was like, holy crap!
Yeah, in the face.
Holy crap! These covert contracts.
Yeah.
Clearly a mistake I've made, and I think a lot of people have, but clearly a mistake I've made. And then the attachment styles, which I never even knew about.
Really?
Never even knew about attachment styles
that's the curse of knowledge. Like you think something's so known, but it's like
6 months ago, I had no idea. Now I know. I'm like, bing, now it's easy. But when you don't know, and then you're reacting and you don't understand why, but once you understand it and you can just tone your emotions, much easier.
Yeah.
Much easier.
Absolutely. So
what's covert contracts?
So
this was brilliant, by the way.
Yeah, Donald Glover. I can't take credit for it. Shout out to Donald Glover. Like he wrote the book No More Mr. Nice Guy. That book, and then The Way to Superior Man by David Data are like the two Bibles when it comes to like how to be a man in a relationship. He talks about this with a lot of nice guys. Will essentially a covert contract under the surface, indirect, however you want to label it. It is an agreement you make with yourself, her involved, without telling her that if you do this thing, right, or you be this way, you are expecting something in return.
Yeah, a great example in a weird analogy would be you take her on a nice weekend trip and nice dinners and all this elaborate stuff with the expectation or the thought that, we're going to have amazing intimacy and we're going to do all this other stuff. She's completely unaware of this covert contract you've created.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Completely unaware. Yet you've created it for yourself. And if that expectation is not met the way you were thinking it should be met, you're pissed. And that you could just multiply that into so many different arenas, and it goes both ways, right? Men to women, women to men. Yeah. But it happens a lot, I think, in relationships.
Not only are you pissed, but like you harbor resentment. You don't even express that anger and frustration because it's covert.
You think you go passive? You think you go passive aggressive?
Absolutely. Everything's covert, right? When it doesn't, like you like. So here's an example, right? Like I can think of a client. So let's say he comes home early from work and makes dinner, right? And then he's expecting that they are going to watch their favorite show together, right? That they haven't watched.
This is actually a really good example.
Yeah. And so let's say, you know, he makes dinner and she says, thank you. He's like, oh, great. I want to watch my show. She's like, oh, I'm going to go do yoga tonight. Right. And then he's like, oh, okay. She's like, okay. So she comes back home and then she's like, oh my gosh, I had a great time at yoga. And the whole time he's like, yep. Just not giving attention, just kind of shutting down. She's like, what's wrong?
She's kind of butthurt.
Nothing's wrong. And so it's very feminine, right? To like, just like, that's how a woman acts when she's upset. I'm fine. And that's like an example, but multiply that over years and years. That's like that death by 1,000
So
cuts.
how does that get addressed? I mean, how would a man address that? Is it having a conversation?
Stop doing the covert contracts first, right?
Sure.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like, you know, I made dinner tonight. I would love if we could watch our show.
Gotcha.
Right. So
being direct.
Be direct.
Versus having the dinner and expecting her to like want to watch the show without you even talking about it.
Yeah. And you're doing like, and if you want to go like highest level, you're making dinner with no expectation. You're not even thank you. If you want that, that's fine. But ask for it. Hey, I would love you to say thank you for making this meal.
Sure.
But you're giving the act of love.
Sure.
Because it's like your kids. Like you feed your kids and I mean, you want your kids to say thank you, but like you just want to feed your damn kids because they're hungry.
Sure.
And you like when they enjoy the food, right?
Yep. No, that makes sense. Huh. Yeah. All these amazing things. Trying to figure out where, like, if I want to get through these next questions first or even talk even deeper on this, but you have an entire YouTube channel dedicated to no porn. Why is that such a big deal to you? Number one, to help men avoid that, get away from it.
Yeah.
And why do you feel it's like destroying what's going on with generations, right? Younger men, maybe older. I don't know.
Yeah. There's so many factors. So
well, let me ask you this question.
Yeah,
what do you define a porn addiction?
An addiction to me, and I think I'm stealing this from Gabor Mate, who's an addiction specialist. He wrote the book In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. He talks about there being a compulsion, and a compulsion is like you just catch yourself automatically doing it without even realizing. Like you're like scrolling through porn into work. You're like, how did I even get on these websites? Right? Gotcha. Or I used to work with drug addicts. They'll be halfway through their dealer's when did I make that right to go to my dealer's house? It's so automatic. Gotcha. You have that urge. And the second thing about an addiction is doing it knowingly, that they're doing it despite knowing the consequences.
Okay.
So like clearly if you stay up to 4 a.m. and you have an exam the next morning, you're watching porn, there's consequences, but you still do it.
Sure.
So those two things define what an addiction is. So with porn, if you're doing it despite consequences and you're doing it on autopilot.
Is it a certain amount of time? Is it like how many times per week? I'm just curious. Like, is there like a definition beyond just those two?
Not clinically.
Okay.
Right. Because I don't think so. I think sex addiction is in the DSM, but I don't think porn addiction is yet. It should be.
Well, the reason I ask this is because you'll talk to actually women who will watch like a little bit of porn. Like you'll hear it. At least they say it. I don't know what's going on.
I think some women do for sure.
So I don't know if that's considered an addiction then. I don't know. Is it?
I never heard of it. So when I did the porn addiction stuff, like I never met any woman who struggled with it personally. I'm not saying there aren't, but I never met a woman. I think for men, we do it for different reasons than women do too.
Gotcha.
We use it as an escape.
Okay.
Right? We're trying to escape our stress. We're trying to escape other emotions, or we're trying to find connection through a click of a mouse too. Right.
Gotcha.
I think women generally use it for different reasons.
Okay.
But yeah,
it's physical stuff or whatever.
I think they use it in a more healthy way than we do. That's for sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's give an example for a minute and kind of get your assessment on it. So a relationship is strained, beginning to get very disconnected.
Yeah.
Intimacy is going away. You know, what 5 simple steps can a man take to get his woman back? Because you talked about this.
When you say strained, you mean like, I need a little bit more context. Like what's...
You sense that, gosh, we haven't connected in a long time, and you could see it's going this way, right? Versus coming together. And then let's say a man's attachment style kicks in. So now he becomes anxious.
Sure.
So now it even sabotages further. Are there steps that a man can take to get his shit together and turn that ship?
I would start off by saying like, what do you want? And so usually when there's a problem, our brain will look for threats over things that we can gain. It's just the way we operate. It's why we survive, right? So you have to override that software by saying like, what do I want? What's the relationship I want to create? What do I want this relationship to look like? And literally write that down on paper. Because I'll get on calls with guys and I'll say, like, okay, what's your goal? Well, I want this, and they go right to the problem story. And our brain naturally does that. So focus on what you want to create. Otherwise, you're just going to create more of the problems. So that's number one. I alluded to number two before, is like identify the core level issues. So people think,
but what if a guy can't?
That's where help comes in, right?
Okay,
that's when you talk to someone who's seen it thousands of times, whether it's a therapist or
because you talk a lot of what men think the problem is versus what the reality of the problem is. I mean, are completely out of alignment, like 95% of the time.
Give you a crazy example.
Yeah, please.
I was working with one of the clients one-on-one, and because a lot of these guys are anxious, we'll talk about attachment theory. His wife was more avoidant. A lot of the women are. And she wouldn't open up about why she was really leaving him. Okay. She didn't feel it in her heart. Right. So he was struggling. Like, just tell me why. Like, what was the moment that you decided that this wasn't going to work out anymore?
She can't do that.
She gave him a moment. She goes, they're on vacation, right? They're driving to this place. And she's like, when you wouldn't let me pick the song, it was always your songs. That was the moment I knew.
Holy shit.
As a guy, when you hear that, you're like, the damn music. That's his response. Like, because the music, that's why you're divorcing me. So like what happens here in the female brain is that they will feel their emotions, right? They'll feel they're just disconnected. And so like their logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, will just look for reasons. They're like, well, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I didn't like this. But it's not speaking to the larger issue, the deeper issue. Because a lot of women aren't aware of what the deeper issues are, which we already talked about: the neediness, lack of leadership, complacency, all these things.
Yeah. So because they're just feeling it, right? Which is why a lot of times you'll ask and they can't explain it. They just know how they feel.
Think about the other way around, right? Like when a woman's dating a guy who's like an a-hole, and like all her friends are like, why are you dating him? I don't know. I just can't help it, Becky. Like it's his truck. I don't know. Like, oh God. You see what I mean? That's the same process the other way around. There's certain inherent qualities that men display with women in romantic context that causes them to be drawn to them. Not just with dating, but relationships, right? And so knowing those tenets are important. Why?
So that maybe steps into a different fun topic. I mean, why do you think women tend to be attracted more to men who treat them not as good?
I think some women do that. And I think the reason why that is if you look at like these two, like two diagrams, like the two circles, there's that protector and the provider we talked about before, right? And like these women really want these guys with protector traits, right? Okay. But they also come with the a-hole traits. But they'd rather be with an a-hole who treats them a little bit badly and is kind of like a chase, but also provides all those protector traits, than a nice guy who has none of them.
Gotcha.
But the apex most
protector traits like being like physical safety, financial safety.
So he's not needy, right? He's like, I can live without you. I want you. I don't need you. Right? He's like, he's dominant. He's not reactive to her emotions. He's like, we're going here tonight. Like, he's not like, where do you want to go tonight for dinner? Right? And she's always choosing going to her masculine. She gets to relax into her feminine state with this a-hole. Yeah. Right? And she'd rather have that with the occasional, I don't know, but then.
Well, no. And you'd mentioned that about how, an example of a feminine trait that a man may put out there is not making decisions for her. Oh, God. Yeah. And it's not that you, actually, I want to hear your response on this because this is really good. But how, women need that because otherwise the anxiety, the stress gets put on her. And she's like, no. Like I need this drive, this leadership, this
she wants you to take
masculine
charge.
Role of like, help us out here, bro.
She wants you to take charge. Okay. Yeah. She wants you down to this. And like, if she's calling you every single day about the most trivial problems and questions, it's like, good. Like if she's not going to you, she's going to go to someone else.
Gotcha.
Right. And so like as a guy in the relationship, as a man, it's like, my wife is just constantly calling me and asking me all these questions. It's like, why can't you choose? It's like, you should want to choose. You should want to provide her with that gift. That's one of the biggest gifts you can give.
Is that the emotional safety side? Because she feels safe and she can trust.
Yeah. Cause like you're guiding the ship and she's there along for the ride.
Gotcha.
You're leading the ship. You're the king. You're the emperor. You have that energy, the warrior, right? Always talked about. And like you think about this as if we were in a tribe and you're a guy and she's like, all right, where are we going for winter? Which direction is the food? And you're like, I don't know, you choose. I'll just follow you. She'll be like, what the hell? Like, no, we have our kids here. Like, you're not going to lead.
Right.
And so like, that's different than choosing dinner, but it's kind of not because it's inherent.
Same philosophy.
It is same philosophy, same behavioral trait.
Interesting. Yeah. Huh. You recently did a video where you talked about how, women are cheating more on men than ever.
Studies show that. Yeah.
Yeah. and it's maybe because we talked about the femininity of men and men are becoming more weak.
I think women have a role in that too, though. But yeah,
there's like 3 habits that disgust a woman. What are they?
Oh,
is it, I mean, I know there's
more than 3,
but there were 3 that you touched on in this video. I don't know if you remember the video, but it was specific to saying there are 3 habits that disgust her. It's got to be the neediness for sure.
Yeah. Lack of leadership, we just talked about. That's definitely one. Being emotionally reactive, right? So when she like comes with her emotions, you get reactive back to her, right? And argue with her and yell at her and don't honor her emotions, try to use logic. You being needy definitely is one as well. I can't remember the other 5 that I referred to, the other 2 in the video, but I would say those are the core 3, right? And those all harping back to that idea of that like masculine core of that guy who you're supposed to be, right? Those behavioral traits. That's like, I got you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to provide for you. And I'm going to be that dominant force in your life that's just going to guide you and like that safe base, right? I always talk about like the metaphor of the home, right? Like that secure home, and a lot of guys, they just, for different reasons that we can get into, or just we struggle with that.
And then, because in the beginning of every relationship, if you guys are attracted to each other, and it's that honeymoon stage, and everybody's going through it, and then the seesaw is in your favor as the man. And then you talk about like the death of 1,000 knives. Like, is it because of these little things that we do and or traits that we start to portray, or we fall into the happy wife, happy life, or happy girlfriend, happy life scenario, and we're trying to logically solve everything versus just allowing emotions to be, and like you said, being that lighthouse or the leader or the shore in the relationship that kind of lets her know, boom, okay, this guy's not going to go anywhere. He's going to allow emotions to be a certain way. He's not going to react in a crazy way. Why do you feel that most relationships are failing today?
Well, I want to touch on that seesaw thing you talked about. You mentioned it twice. So some people listening may not know what that is. Like, I base it off of Dr. Gottman, who's like this relationship expert, 30 years in love labs in, I don't know, I think Utah or something. But he talks about how like he came from like a very educational civil engineer or like mathematics background. So he looks at relationships very objectively and like by the numbers. And it used to be 4-to-1. It's now 5-to-1. I think people are more entitled. That's why. Okay. But like he says that every good relationship needs like 5 positive emotional experiences to every 1 negative emotional experience to balance it out. And in that beginning limerence phase, when those drugs are just rushing through your brain,
all positive.
You can't, like, they could literally cuss out the waiter and like, yeah, that waiter's an asshole, right? Like, he did nothing wrong. It's like, you can't see them in a negative light. But when those drugs fade over time, because they do, that's when a lot of those attachment wounds and like slowly those things that used to be positive investments start to become like that slow tipping scale of like little negative investments. Every time you didn't lead her, every time you didn't listen to her emotions. And it's just like over time as a stimulus, when she looks at you subconsciously, she's like, there are a lot more negative emotional experiences. And I just, when I think of you, when I look at you call on my phone, I'm like, oh, stressed out. Yeah. Right. That happens. Right. But in the beginning, you're like, oh, hey, how's it going? Right. Yeah. Because as a stimulus, there's more negative than positive. Right. And so, I forgot the original question from this prompt. I just wanted to elaborate on that, like seesaw kind of metaphor.
Yeah. Cause it happens a lot. And then maybe it's, roommates raising kids or just roommates hanging out at that point. Right. Because a lot of maybe the intimacy, the connection, all of that goes sideways.
I think the marriage takes a back seat, right? Yeah. Kids come first, the relationship, that's just life. Right?
And then 10 years goes on, 20 years goes on in some cases. Kids leave the house and then now they're like, oh, we don't even get along.
There's a psychologist, I think he recently passed away, named Dr. Yalom. He created existential psychotherapy, and he talks about how we have awakening experiences. And what he means by that is like, there are certain milestones in our life that make us realize we're going to die. Like, we consciously know we're going to die, but like really, oh crap, I only have this many years left. The kids leaving the house is one, right? The empty nest, 40th, 50th birthday, high school anniversaries. Ironically, as my mom, I think she went to the high school anniversary and then her father died. And that's when everything started to fall apart.
Gotcha.
And I see this a lot with the wives. It's so predictable that this like life experience happens, awakening experience. They're like, I am not happy with this guy. I haven't been. All right. Let's make a change. So I think it's important to know that these big experiences do kind of cause the woman to like look at her life and where she wants to go with the rest of it. Apex habits. Yeah.
What are they? And why are they needed?
So as I talked about apex male, that concept of that is just that like that high value, top 1% guy. And, when you can combine all those dominant traits we're talking about, but also know how to balance that emotional connection, being vulnerable, being nice to your wife, still providing with her and striking that balance, that is that apex male trait. So it's really a combination of like those two types of guys, and knowing how to balance those two is where the art form comes in. Because a lot of guys will get confused. They'll say like, okay, I'm supposed to put my wife second, but how do I still respect her? Right. And so like those questions cause a lot of confusion. And when you know how to strike that balance between those two traits, that is what really kind of has you lean into that high value man, is when you can balance the niceness and also the protector traits.
Gotcha. Okay. You work with sex offenders.
I used to.
Okay. And men, you talked about like we're sex offenders, men that beat their wives and all this. So talk a little bit more about that. And then how were you able to connect to maybe either make some change, or you just don't want to sit there and whip their ass?
Well, I don't work with guys with DV in our company. We don't accept that. We can let them have the online course if they want, just, as a resource, but we don't accept guys with DV. With sex offenders, I worked at a sex offender clinic, and I never wanted to work with that population ever, because, most people are like, we see them as like scum of the earth, right?
Well, I mean, it's rough if you were to go to jail and the worst criminals in jail that are murderers want to like kill the sex offender.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's when you're below the below.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was hard to connect with a lot of them. I'm really good at connecting with people, but it was hard to connect with some of them. But like some of the guys, there was one kid, he was 25 and he was dating a 17-year-old, and it's like, one guy, he peed outside. And some girl saw him peeing outside.
No.
Swear to God. Yeah. It's not all of them are like this like archetype of this like
sure
child predator thing. There were some guys that were like
peeing outside in a bush and a girl. Oh, see that.
So that,
because that can ruin someone's life.
It did. It did for a lot of them. It did for a lot of them. One guy, he swear he didn't do anything, but he was accused of something one drunken night by a girl. And so like, a lot of them, there are some of those other guys, but there also were some of the guys where you're like, damn, it sucks that you're here. So I am going to bring up a couple of his videos. I'm going to try and do this on screen here and see if I can pull this off. This one I thought was a good one, and I'd actually written it down, why women give mixed messages. Yeah.
Okay. And it was about 4 minutes and 43 seconds into this video. You were explaining deep down how your girlfriend or wife is ultimately begging you to learn how to get her back.
Yeah.
In a weird way.
Want me to touch on that now, or do you want to?
Let me play it real quick.
Okay.
Let's see if this works.
I go over all of these potency actions with my personal clients in my marriage mastery program. If you want a chance to join the program, you can set up a free call with me or one of my lead coaches down below, and we can assess if your situation is right to save your marriage or your relationship. But overall, I am going to give you one powerful exercise in this video that you can use right now with your wife or girlfriend. The first thing you need to understand is what I already told you, that deep down your wife is begging for you to know how to win her back. This is so important for you to understand, because guys that don't understand this concept or this belief, they're the ones that lose hope and give up, and separation is inevitable. However, if you can know deep down when she is yelling at you or giving you mixed signals or being distant or cold to you, that over that tough exterior for being cold and distant, she really wants your love, keeps you persistent to break through that shell, and that's what she really wants. Because deep down what women do is this. They are saying to you, can I treat you in a way to make me not feel loved and you still love me? Because more than anything else in the world, a woman wants love unconditionally. Now, there should be conditions on that as a man, but as long as you know deep down that she is craving for you to love her, despite what she says or does to you, and if you can do that consistently, she will give you her soul. I don't care if she gave you divorce papers, she's ghosting you on text messages, she's being cold to you, she says, I don't even love you anymore. All of those things are a facade. They're a test. They're just ways to push you away, because deep down she wants to see if you can overcome that test.
All right.
He knows what he's talking about.
He knows what he's talking about. So elaborate on that.
Yeah. So like, I mean, now we're getting into some very esoteric kind of territory, right? When it comes to,
this is female psychology. This is why I was because you come at things from a very unique angle that most don't. So.
Look, like, Schrodinger's cat. It's this concept where like, if you open the box, it's like, you don't know if the cat's dead or not, right? Yeah. So when you open the box, you confirm whether the cat's dead or not. Right. And so the idea here is that you can't tell the future, right? And the only thing that you have in control over this situation is what you believe, right? And so like I can guarantee that a lot of the guys that when they already feared that their marriage was on the outs, that they was going to lose him. The moment she says, I don't know about this, you're going to leave me, right? And so because they believe that, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's the same thing with when I got cheated on, right? When she was texting.
That happened in my last relationship.
When she was texting in the corner laughing, I'm like, she's probably texting that guy. Do you think I showed up to her like open, relaxed? No, if I'm thinking she's cheating on me, I'm going to be closed off. I'm going to literally push her into the other guy's arms. And so then
I think you start portraying certain traits that aren't traditional. Either it's anxiousness, neediness.
Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about a lot about this, like with the quantum physics and like creating your reality and all that stuff that I do use. And when it comes down to it, I can only speak to all the wives we've saved where the wife was like, I was done. I said I was over. I said I was no longer in love with him. I wanted a divorce. I gave him the divorce papers. I've seen it all. And they all got back. So why not choose to believe that it is a test, that she does want you back? And then when you, at least in the very least, you will become the man that she wants. And then if it doesn't work out, you're that higher value man for the next woman. That's the best way to go about it. Because what's the alternative option? It's to say like, oh no, woe is me. It's over. It's done. And then
you're creating a negative thought. Like you said, a fulfilling prophecy in the relationship when any kind of negative feelings about the relationship start to come out of her. Is that what I'm...
Absolutely. So like, let's take a scenario where the guy's like, all right, it's over. It's done. She gave me the divorce. Divorce papers is actually a perfect one. This is one I use all the time. Guy gets the divorce papers. 2 guys get it. First guy says, that means it's over. It's done. He gives up. It's over. It's done. Guaranteed, right? Nail in the coffin. The other guy says, just a piece of paper. I don't care. It's cool. I'm still going to win you back. And so I get on calls with guys, right? And I'm not lying to you. The first 10 minutes, I can tell, like, all right, this guy's going to win his wife back. I've seen this. I'd be an idiot if I didn't recognize the patterns.
Sure.
And consistently, it's the guys that say, she's my soulmate. She's the one.
So they're determined.
They're not only determined, they're like delusionally confident.
Okay.
I'm going to get her back. Like, cool, I'll see you in 30 days or, 60 days. And I see those guys and like, they do exactly what they need to do to win her back. Because ultimately it comes down to like her frame of reality versus yours. And as a man in our masculine, if you have a stronger frame, she's going to fall into your frame, which means she's going to believe what you believe.
Gotcha.
Right.
Attachment styles.
Yeah.
Let's get into this a little bit. Yeah. So you have, what's the 4? You have secure
attached, anxious, avoidant,
and then
disorganized, which is like a combination of like anxious and avoidant.
Holy shit. Which one's the worst?
The last one. For sure.
Okay. So what I had learned, and I'll just give you from my perspective. So I'm a secure attachment style, except what I had learned is that when I am emotionally connected to somebody, and that could be a close friend or a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Or once I'm emotionally connected and I sense a negative feeling about the relationship, boom, I go from secure to anxious and then sabotage.
Yeah. So you're not securely attached because,
well, and you're like smiling at me when I said that, but I am though. Like, I feel like
you're secure. So like your attachment style is expressed under stress.
What's that?
So think about it. Like your attachment style only comes out when you're stressed out.
Ah, gotcha.
So what you display,
but even though you're like a secure, like man, like, like, I mean, because I think now, if that same, because I know what I know now, because I know about attachment styles now, I was like, holy crap, I wish I would have known this stuff. Now that I know it, it's about how you react. And I don't think I would ever react the same way anymore.
Then that's growth. That's healing. That's awesome. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I had a guy say, he's like, I'm securely attached when everything's going right. It's like everyone's secure. Like when you're in love, everyone's securely attached.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Like,
gotcha.
Under the stress that it gets expressed. Right. So, but yeah, disorganized.
I love how you just called it out right there. It was good.
Yeah. Disorganized. I got to say that. So like there's a study done. It was like this is how they found attachment theory, or Mary Ainsworth did. It's called the Strange Experiment. They have these little kids go into a room, right? And they have the mother there and they have a stranger come in. The kid kind of looks at the stranger. They still play. Mom leaves the room. Yeah. However, the kids responded when the mom left and when she returned was like the attachment style.
Gotcha.
So I just want to show you what disorganized was. Disorganized is when mom leaves the room. Kid's like, oh, I need my mom back. Where is she? They're showing anxious. When mom comes back, screw you. You left me. And then they run away from mom. Okay. So that's the woman that says like, no, don't leave me. And then you're like, okay, I'll give you what you want. I'm sorry, I love you. Screw it. Takes me to say like, I need you. Screw you. I'm going to leave now. Right.
Gotcha.
So they're showing like anxious when you're leaving and then avoiding when you come.
Wow, that's tough.
Those people never really go into relationships that long.
Is a lot of it derived from childhood?
I mean, all of it.
No.
I mean, you can change your attachment style over time with new relationships and creating, new patterns, but it all stems from childhood. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever been to a Tony Robbins conference?
I've been to one. UPW. Yeah.
Okay. So one thing I learned most from him, that he talks about, he says, if you want to be super successful in your life, there's one thing you have to master. And everybody's like, oh, what? What's the one thing?
The one thing with Magic Pill, yeah.
Pattern recognition. Pattern recognition in people, in markets, in events, in moments. Pattern recognition. Yeah. If you can recognize patterns in life, right, in how people react, how markets react, how societies react, how maybe event is unfolding. All these patterns. If you are very good at pattern recognition, then you're very good at adapting and moving and shaking, and you can actually become very successful because of those patterns. Because then in the future how to react.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yeah.
So becoming conscious of like those patterns is a reference to the attachment theory, right? So like that's growth, right? Because like let's say, perfect story. This is personal, right? I was a lot more avoidant after my first couple of relationships. I was very anxious, and then I swung the pendulum in the other direction, which happens a lot.
So did you give me an example of an avoidant? Like meaning if a relationship is ending,
yeah,
how would an avoidant react?
I'm going to sleep with someone else. I'm going to leave the relationship.
Would you?
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go find someone else. Like, screw you. I'm done.
Like quickly?
I think the speed at which it happens depends on a lot of variables.
Gotcha.
But I just want to tell you about that pattern recognition point is like, I was with a partner, and she said that she like had this other guy she was talking to. Right. Okay. And he was really cool, and they connected, and my heart's racing. I'm like, this guy like wants her, all this stuff. And like, like what's going on here? But I didn't want to say anything at the time. And then I was like, wait, I should express my emotions. I should be honest with my feelings, right? This
is what you're thinking you should do?
And in the moment. And so I'm like, I feel a little bit insecure that you have this guy as a friend now, like that maybe you like him a little bit. She's like, oh, okay, well, he's gay. And, but if I kept that in and I never shared it, I would have been like, I'm going to go talk to some other girl. Right.
Gotcha. So do you think it was a good thing that you did that?
Right. So being aware of like that normal.
And is that okay to express that emotion without showing a feminine trait?
So like,
I'm just curious.
So I want to touch on this because this is really important. There's so many guys out there in like the manosphere and like dating advice coaches and stuff that like never show your emotions to a woman.
Well, it's a toxic. What is about this toxic masculinity, femininity?
If you show weakness, she's going to see you as less than all this stuff.
Sure.
Your relationship with your emotions are what matter. If you're insecure about your vulnerability, that's what she'll respond to. If you're like, yeah, I'm really nervous right now to give this speech on stage. People are like, oh, he's weak.
And own it.
Own it. Like,
gotcha.
And that's what I did with her. I was like, I feel a little bit insecure right now. That's okay. That's all right. And it's because I think it's
without she thinks it's all right. Saying I feel insecure, but then you're like withering while you're saying it.
Well, okay. So like, I think what a lot of guys, I'll speak to this, is like, don't become a victim. Right? Like that would look like in that scenario, oh man, like who is this guy? Like, why do you want a relationship with him still? I don't know. Like, why do you even like him? Like, that's the kind of response to, that's what insecurity looks like. Right? Instead of just owning it. Like, I feel a little bit insecure right now. Name it, put it out there. And if she's a good woman, she'll want to like reassure you.
Like talk about it.
Yeah.
If she cares. Right. Yeah. Interesting. This was another good one. And he's all over YouTube. I mean, if you need to...
So what does it actually mean to be high status? Nowadays more than ever, there are so many different ideas and paradigms about what a high status male actually is. I mean, and there's so many models out there. You can take Dr. David Hawkins' levels of consciousness model. You could take Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And there's so many different pockets of men in the manosphere, which is something I'll talk about in a second, about telling you what it means to be a high status male. Well, in this video, I'm going to give you a framework that you can apply and use in the relationship context that is driven by thousands of years of evolutionary psychology and variables and components I've seen that other high status men that have the life that you want utilize on a subconscious level every single day to gain the life they want. to be in the relationships that last their lifetime. All right, let's jump in. All right, so the model I'm using here is called the high status matrix. As you can see, there are two planes. There's a vertical axis, which has to do with your self-esteem, your self-worth, and there is the horizontal axis, which has to do with your attachment style. I talked about attachment style in a previous video. You can check that out in my video playlist. You'll see that on attachment styles. But on the very top, you have pride, arrogance, thinking you're better than your wife and other people. On the bottom, you have shame, which is, I'm a bad person, I'm worse than others. On the horizontal axis, on the attachment styles, you have avoidant attachment style, which is constantly just trying to avoid people, not go towards problems, thinking again, that I'm better than everyone else. I can just avoid my problems, not get close to people, not let them hurt me. On the other end, you're extremely anxious. This has to do with you being a nice guy, begging, pleading, always riddled with anxiety. When you
Let me stop it real quick.
Yeah,
why do you think men tend to be more anxious attachment styles and women tend to be more avoidant?
So I actually discussed this on a podcast recently. It's actually the literature will show that actually more men are avoidant in our society.
Really?
Yeah. So why I talk about anxiety a lot is because the men we work with are more anxious because they're the ones that are going to want to seek solutions when there's a problem.
Gotcha.
Right. So generally more men are avoidant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Now, the idea here is that you want to find the sweet spot is right in the center. This is where a high status man lives, right? Right here. Not better than others, not worse, just as equal. And you have a secure attachment style. When you combine both of these, you create what's known as what I call the apex male. This is a guy who is so high status that his value just oozes off in every social interaction. He feels so content with who he is that he's so filled up that he just offers value to other people because he is worth so much himself. This is that kind of guy that walks into the room full of charisma and people are drawn to him like a magnet. Now in this video, I'm not going to go over why you are one way or another. I have plenty of videos doing that. I'm just going to tell you what these pockets look like with different actions and behaviors, give you examples and how to embody this guy. So I'm going to do this through something called the manosphere. Now, if you don't know what the manosphere is, it's basically a different pocket of men's development groups, specifically in the context of dating and relationships. Each of these people have a belief that their paradigm of viewing the world, women, and relationships, and yourself is optimal to be happy. But I'm going to tell you through lots of experience that it's very flawed based on this model, okay? And actually produces a lot of negative results. So the first one is people who have low sense of self-worth and are extremely anxious. This is known as the typical blue-pilled person. A blue-pilled person is the nice guy that's been sold the fairy tale that women are perfect and I'll do anything for her. And this is known in the internet terminology as a simp, right? Someone who's bending over backwards for their wife. Or a girl in a relationship.
So would that guy get cheated on all the time and left all the time?
Your money.
Not always cheated on, but definitely left for eventually.
Gotcha.
That's the guy I was in the first relationship.
Was the blue pill?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is that because you had this fairy tale?
Most men are. I would say
Really?
90% of guys are this blue pill ideology. Huh. And that's just not, and blue pill, like with the Matrix, right? It's like there's like the red pill, but the blue pills is like they don't understand the true nature of female psychology.
Gotcha.
To make her happy, you're doing her all these favors, and you're compromising who you are and your boundaries as a man just to make her happy. You are afraid of conflict, hence the anxiety. Now, what happens here is that when you operate in the blue pill space as a nice guy, she loses respect for you, she gets bored, and there's no challenge, so she wants to leave you. Women need challenge. And this guy loses respect, and if a girl doesn't respect you, she's not going to be with you. On the other end of the extreme, we have avoidant personality and shame. This is known as an incel. Incels in the or black pill community, if you want to talk about the manosphere terminology. So an incel basically believes that he is worse than other people. He is low on the status hierarchy, that he's not good enough, and he completely avoids all women. So they adopt the beliefs that women only choose, let's say, men that are over 6 foot tall with millions of dollars, and they're only going to date these high status guys, and there's no chance for them, right? This comes from a fundamental belief that they're just not good people, that they have a lot of trauma, they have low sense of self-worth, and so they avoid dating altogether. They don't even try because the fear of rejection is just crippling to them. So they completely give up on life. This is a man who just doesn't even want to try, becomes depressed, and just blames society for everything. Pretty much the opposite.
Yeah.
Over the years, this is that pocket is growing more and more scary.
Well, and that's when you were talking about that, the first thing that went into my brain was, are these the men who are doing school shootings?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Elliot Rogers was a overt black pill on the incel forums guy, right?
Wow.
He
Okay. And why is that happening? Is it because of video games? Is it because of screens? Is it because of
porn is an issue? Porn is a variable.
Yeah.
I could speak more to that, but like I can get all these women, but yeah, when I go in real life, I can get instant access to naked women.
Right.
Thousands more than I could ever see thousands of years ago. But then when I go in real life, I say hi, I get rejected. That's like messes with your self-identity. But other than that, I would say that technology is the biggest role. Technology and how like women with Instagram dating apps, that women's sense of self is actually getting inflated a lot.
Oh,
right. They're getting all
obviously being not on the apps at the moment, but when I was, and then meeting a couple girls, and I would ask them, how many likes or DMs do you get?
Flooded.
It's like 1,300 or more. And I'm like, holy shit.
And they take that mentality out into real life and they think like all these guys should be just like flocking to me. And so if you heard of hypergamy, it is
what is it called?
Hypergamy.
I've heard of it, yes, but I don't know what it is.
It is something from the red pill community that I actually agree with, which is like, so if you think of like a Likert scale, 0 through 10,
okay,
right? That the guys who are like basically 9s and 10s are always dating down, like basically across and down. That's what men are dating.
Okay.
Right. And then women are dating across and up. Okay. So you have like from like 6s are on the girl scale is dating like 7s and 8s and all the way up. And that leaves all these bottom men 5 and down below, just single, alone. And studies recent studies show that 75% of men, by the age of 30 now are, I think, have had sex with like 1 or 2 women. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's just like, we're having less and less sex. Men are getting single longer and longer. Less people are getting married. It's just, there's a huge pocket of men are just alone, single, and just give up on dating. There's like, yeah.
All right, hold on. We'll give them a couple more minutes of this and then we'll.
Okay. Pretty sure that majority of you do not fall into this category. I'm sure a lot of you fall into this category, or we're going to talk about one of these 2 categories next, okay? So the next one is pride with avoidance. Now, in the manosphere, this is a guy in the MGTOW community. So MGTOW essentially means men going their own way. So a lot of these are all based in trauma, by the way, okay? Trauma is a response to something that happens to you, and you adopt new beliefs to protect yourself in the reality. Now, everyone in the MGTOW community has always been through a divorce, been cheated on, been screwed over by a woman. Now, instead of taking responsibility that their actions led to the trauma and seeing the truth behind it, they choose to adopt the beliefs, especially now in the internet age, you can find confirmation of any belief you have, that women are all solipsistic, that they are always going to be advantageous, looking for the best next thing, and that a woman's always going to leave you for a better man. So they think, you know what, screw women in general, I'm not going to even try, I'm better than them, I don't need that. So you can see how the pride works with that, and there's an avoidant personality style, how they just choose to avoid women completely. Incels, they feel like they can't even talk to a woman if they tried. MGTOW, they believe that, I'm choosing to opt out of dating altogether because the juice isn't worth the squeeze. That's how they work it out in their mind, and they operate out of fear. Pride is a false sense of insecurity, right? It's placing yourself above others to think that you are better, even though it's not. And it produces a lot of anger within the person that adopts that belief. Other key characteristics that I want to point out to you, with the bottom right quadrant is a sense of desperation and manipulation. The bottom left quadrant is categorized by withdrawal and depression. Negative effect in their life is that because they have anxiety and because they have these beliefs about women that they're better than them, they're only attracting women that they spout out in their beliefs. So a really common phrase that kind of consolidates this idea is that the only thing you have in common with the woman you date is you. So because they think all women are going to be cheaters, because they think all women are going to be solipsistic and be to take advantage and opportunistic, they only attract women from low self-worth. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And they're mired in these ideas and they think that there's no other option out there. And there's a false sense of pride around it.
For what?
Shout out to Fresh and Fit podcast.
For
the red pill.
Oh.
Yeah, they you don't heard of the Fresh and Fit podcast?
No.
Their whole,
I feel like I should.
You know who that is? They get basically, they're in Miami and they get a bunch of 19, 20-year-old Miami girls that go out to the clubs all the time. And
yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and they basically just like throw these like red pill ideologies at them, like just try to.
I think I've seen it. I just didn't know that.
Like attack them and just debate with these girls who don't know how to like defend themselves and these ideas, and it's like basically mental masturbation for all the guys watching. Yeah, like you're bad, you're a slut. Like,
oh God! What is that accomplishing?
It's validation. It's like of like you are like because these girls rejected them, right? Mm-hmm. And basically the whole time they're saying like, so you're trying to, because like these girls will complain about they can't find a good man, And here's this guy's like, I'm a good man, but that kind of girl rejected me last weekend in the club. Yeah, it's not my fault. It's her fault because her standards
playing victim.
Her standards are too high.
Versus what he should be thinking if he was a high status, high value man, was sitting in the apex center. Like, get your shit together.
What's my role in it?
No, I know, right? Yeah. But most men don't do that, which is why it was so helpful to learn a lot of these things I mean, if you care and you're self-aware and you want to improve your life and be and you just want to be the best version of you, then you want to work. You may never get there, but you want to work to be in the dead center apex man. Is that what I'm...
And apex man just means, like, honestly, like, at the end of the day, it's like just being secure in who you are.
Yeah.
Like loving yourself, seeing your own worth, right? These things that we all know consciously, but like hard to practice, right?
I mean, I could keep going because it's like there's so much stuff you can go in with.
I have 2 books. One's on, my first book was on dating. I took that thesis I mentioned. I wrote it when I was like 24. So I don't know. I haven't read it since, but it's out there.
You know, I got an interesting question for you. What does your current girlfriend think of your, like, does she feel you manipulate?
Yeah, it's funny, man. It's whenever someone in any relationship, I've gotten this, I've been a therapist for a while.
Yep.
It's like, you're therapizing me. So
that's a term.
So I'm actively listening to your emotions and being present with you. And I get like, okay, I will kind of take some ownership here and say, like, sometimes since I know all this stuff, it can kind of have a better than thou kind of approach. Like, okay. I see your problem clearly. Right. And like, well, you're reacting this way because you see it this way. But what that does is, like, it kind of diminishes their emotions a little bit. So I will take ownership, and that sometimes does happen because I'm in the therapist role. I want to help and heal.
Sure.
But in the moment, it's like fixing the problem. It's just another version of that.
Gotcha.
But I think, she wouldn't have it any other way. She'd rather have me know how to listen to her emotions.
Well, you'd think so. I mean, especially if you're the high value status and portraying certain traits.
But if she's upset about me, she'll find whatever reason to, like, attach to that upset feeling, right? Going back to it. So,
it's a never ending story.
Well, so David did talk about this. Like, the one thing you'll never escape, like, the life will always test you, so will your woman. You'll never escape those things.
It's very true.
So embrace it.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's like a guy saying, like, I wish my business was super easy. I just made all this money, and it was just like, you want to win the lottery? You wouldn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
And so when your wife finally opens up to you and you guys connect emotionally, physically, it's like, you went through this test, you're elite. Like, that's a gift, right? Should be just given. A lot of guys are like, my wife should have sex with me. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Doesn't work that way. What do they say? Men go from here to here, right? Because we connect
Yes. Most men, yeah.
We can't connect emotionally without a physical intimacy connection. Mm-hmm. And then women are completely vice versa, right? They got to go heart to, down there.
Yeah, the guy says, like, I will be more this if she just, like,
Yeah, but it's cart before the horse before the cart. You got to realize you're not getting there without the heart
and
or
my
the brain.
Is that the man leads in a relationship.
Yeah, 100%.
In every way.
Yeah. So, man has to lead, has to set the stage, be high value.
We get to.
Yeah. We get to, is that the term? Has to? Yeah, we get to.
Yeah.
We get to. I like that.
I like to play with semantics a lot because
and that's smart with the language.
Yeah.
It's an affirmation. That's good.
There's a difference between saying, like, I'm depressed versus, like, I'm dealing with depression. Because, like, if you say I am depressed, like, you identify with that label, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Steve Harvey mentioned that recently on one of his little reels that he did online. And he said, if you just change this one word from I have to I get to, I have to I get to.
It seems so small.
I get to go to work today. I get to pick up my kids from school. I get to go spend time with my wife. I get to do these things.
I get to move to Seattle. I don't know about that one.
So with that in mind, when are you leaving?
A month. No.
Okay.
I'm finishing up our next version of the course.
So you're waiting for the fall and the winter to go. That's good. It's smart.
Best time of the year, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Snowboard.
What's in the future kind of going down the pike for your business? Because it's growing massively. You've traveled a lot. You run a lot of online things to help men and, improve their marriages, right? Keep them, save them, improve themselves, all the above.
More of the same. And then we hired a bunch of coaches. We're going to train them we're going to kind of create like a network.
Are they all over the country?
We have one in Australia, one in England, and we want to have them have their own social media accounts, right? So we have like a network of coaches all preaching.
And are they trained under your philosophy?
I'll be training them. Yep. And then, and then after that, we want to create like this higher end back end program where it's like guys who want to go deeper into the self-development apex male stuff, not just saving their wives. We'll give them the opportunity to do that as well. So that's like kind of business, what we're kind of focusing on next.
I love it. Anything you want to ask of us before we finish up? How can people find you? Obviously social media, YouTube.
I would say, Marriage Mastery on YouTube is probably the best.
I mean, just type in Josh Hudson and he's everywhere. So it's growing rapidly.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good
and I won't put his name out, but he said that you literally, when you'd watched your stuff and then he talked to one of your coaches and then went through your thing, and he's in his 60s and had a spouse pass some years ago that he had spent many years with, and then got into the dating scene again and met someone. But he was portraying a lot of these very feminine traits and needy traits and anxious traits and all these other things. And once he understood it, was able to literally flip the switch. And now he got her back. And she, and it's wild. But once again, it comes down to how bad do you want it, and do you want to improve yourself first to be the best version of you, which will then attract what you're trying to attract. Would you say that, I'd be interested to finish up with this.
Sure.
If you have like a 10 woman, she's a 10.
Like perfect.
Like you're talking model level.
Look, everything, like full package.
Everything. But you had mentioned that a lot of them don't get approached that much.
Oh no.
Which is the irony. In how would a man approach? Because you were mentioning, I think, either a friend or someone who, maybe if he was ranked, if you want to rank somebody, would be like a 6, right? But he was able to get a 10 plus because he totally took the psychology of like, I don't give a shit and I'm going and who cares? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? She gives me
those couples. You see a guy with like a gorgeous model woman and everyone thinks like he must be some multi-million, he must have something. But honestly, at the end of the day, we call it entitlement, right? Like if you feel and you're entitled to that level of beauty and you guys connect and you see her other than that identity. Yeah.
I think you got to take the beauty side away.
These women, like a woman who is like gorgeous, she knows, she's very in tune to like, is this guy just trying to sleep with me? Right. And like the best way a guy can like completely dismantle it like that is to knock her down a peg, not like to attack her, but like not see her through that lens of like, she's this gorgeous, perfect angel, pedestal. Like she's just a human being. I'm going to see if I connect with her. Like, who are you? What do you do for a living?
Gotcha.
Right. Like, just like you're just a human being and I want to see if you can connect with me.
Yeah.
Right?
And not getting so triggered by the beauty side. Right.
Which, just, if women that gorgeous are rare to find. So, but economically, it's like when you see it, it is a valuable commodity. So knowing how to trick your brain to say that she's just a human being, she has her faults, and seeing those is kind of the trick there. Right.
Well, this has been fun, man.
It has been, yeah.
Anything you want to end with that we didn't touch on that I maybe have missed? I mean, you've helped me in a lot of ways. And then I actually started doing the hypnotic reprogramming in addition to kind of watching a lot of your stuff.
I love hypnosis.
That has been wild.
Yeah.
I've never been hypnotized.
An individual specialist? Or?
Yeah, here in San Diego, a place called A Deep Space.
Okay.
And that's been incredible. I've never been hypnotized, and then starting to learn about a lot of the subconscious stuff that you're completely unaware of and how it affects and comes out. And then you get clarity with it. And it really helps move things forward that you were completely unaware of. I'm great when I understand things, right? Like probably a decent amount of people. So it's nice when you learn it, because then I'm quick to fix it so it doesn't happen again and not repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again. So I'm pretty good at that. So
the iteration process is like,
it's quick. Like once again, if I would have learned and known about attachment styles, that stuff wouldn't have happened in the past, but it happened. I've learned, and then you move forward. And then now I'm like, oh, I have a totally different mindset about it.
So let me ask you a question. So what would you call that quality in yourself that you have? Because that's what leads to success with you. And I think it's a big factor.
Being self-aware, self-accountable, being able to take accountability for shit you're not good at, but then willing to improve it, and then, not hold on to the past too long and be able to move forward.
Let me ask you a question. If something positive happens in your life, do you attribute that mostly to you or outside factors?
When something positive happens to me in my life,
because of your actions or more outside of your control? Which one, if you had to pick one or the other?
My control.
Right. And so in psychology, it's called the internal locus of control. And so people who have high internal locus of control, like life happens to me and it's because I am at the cause of it all, those people find more success and happiness. And the people are like, I'm a leaf in the wind. Oh, like victimhood, right?
Gotcha.
So I would say that's...
Yeah, I think we, by our actions or inactions, can maneuver and manifest and move things in life the way that we would like them.
If I was to find one thing that causes guys to win their wife, you know, or any success, it's porn addiction, anything, dating. It's that. It's like, I am responsible. I am the helm of the ship. I control my life. I am the, you know, the one pulling the strings. And like, yes, there's, if you believe, you know, have your faith in God or whatever that is as well. But like, ultimately, if like you believe God works through you, then like you are at the control. You have that free will and you create everything. And at the end of the day, that belief has served me where I'm at, served you, listening. Like if they have any of that victimhood in themselves.
Yeah, you got to be self-aware
Yeah.
and you're self-accountable to say, okay, what role did I play? And you could say it's 50-50 or okay, maybe, but you have to understand that there are actions or inactions that you created that probably caused, because you need to be the leader. Like you said, men need to lead and be the leaders and be these high value figures. You have to take that lighthouse approach and the shore approach and all these other things to kind of lead the ship. Right. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to run into some problems.
You'll be powerless, right?
Yeah. So awesome, man. We'll sign off. Hey, if you want to find Josh Hudson everywhere, YouTube, Instagram, I mean, is there a place you're not? I mean, you're going to be in Seattle now. So does that mean, do you have like favorite football teams, baseball teams, sports teams, anything?
I played soccer my whole life.
Okay.
I know. I'm American, but I played soccer. So I'm a huge soccer fan, but grew up in NorCal. So I was more of like a Niners, Warriors kind of guy, but yeah.
All right. So there's no sports attachments. So that's good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, man. I'm looking forward to having this come out and everybody's going to, I think, gain a lot from it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.